Hey everyone, Rachel here with Crisis of Crime. Today in this extended episode, I wanted to talk about a question that a listener sent to me regarding shared responsibility. So it was on the podcast on the controversial topics in victimology. So the question was essentially regarding sexual assault and whether a woman's attire can assign some of that responsibility to her for being victimized. The listener was asking this question from a really good place, very concerned about their friend who had been sexually assaulted on multiple occasions, who also tends to wear more provocative clothing. So I'm really glad that this listener asked this question because it's so important to ask, especially since a lot of times when a woman is sexually assaulted or raped, one of the first questions that people ask was, what was she wearing? So it's a completely valid question, and I'm very glad that they're asking this. It's so important that we ask questions that we don't know the answers to, especially when it's a topic that we ourselves don't have any experience with. So kudos to the listener for asking this question, and I'm glad that I'm able to talk about it here in the extended content so everybody can now get the answer to it. So just a brief overview, the idea of shared responsibility really asks the question of whether there was something that the victim could have done to avoid being victimized, such as locking their car doors to avoid having something stolen out of their car. And shared responsibility is very controversial because it does place some blame on the victim. And so while it's easy to look at a situation and think, okay, well, maybe that action is increasing the chances of victimization, we ultimately have to turn to research and data to see if those actions are actually impacting the chances. So in regards to attire and sexual assault, there is actually no correlation. Research has found that women are sexually assaulted regardless of what they're wearing. So that being said, research does show that the human mind tends to dehumanize people when they do wear more revealing or provocative clothing. But that goes both ways. It's for both men and women. Women do it to other women and to men, and men vice versa. And almost everybody does this. It's a natural subconscious instinct that we have. It's very primal in humans. And so the majority of us do this, but the majority of us also don't sexually assault people. So we can determine that even though humans do this, it doesn't lead to an increased risk of sexual assault based on what someone is wearing. So if you remember back to the victimology podcast where I talked about the fact that the single biggest indicator that somebody is going to become a victim is if they've been previously victimized in the past. And so this is a much better explanation for why somebody may be getting victimized multiple times. And there's a couple of reasons for why that happens. So in general, those who have been victimized by sexual assault especially have lower self-esteems and can feel like they're not in control of their lives. And because of this, they may fail to take normal safety precautions to protect themselves from being re-victimized. Additionally, victims of sexual assault or rape may develop post-traumatic stress disorder or PTSD. They may also develop dissociative behaviors, which lower their ability to recognize potential danger. Additionally, there was a study done of victims and non-victims of sexual assault, and it found that the victims were much slower to pick up on danger cues, and they were actually not likely to flee a situation until a physical touch had been initiated. And this was versus the non-victims who would flee the situation before any physical touch had been initiated. So essentially, non-victims are better at picking up on danger cues than victims. So all these things combined may leave a victim more vulnerable or less assertive, which ultimately makes them look like a better target to potential predators. So this is often why we see people getting victimized over and over again. So like I said in the beginning, I think this was a fantastic question to ask. It's definitely so important that we educate ourselves. And if you're wanting to talk to somebody about sexual assault and about not being a victim multiple times, if you're worried about somebody who might be getting victimized multiple times, it's important that when you talk to them that you're coming from a place of empowerment, of wanting them to empower themselves, not you just kind of telling them what to do. So I would recommend just giving them different resources to read. They can read it on their own time. I probably wouldn't recommend sitting them down and having an intervention kind of thing that can be traumatizing to some people. Some people you just have to go at their own pace. So providing resources that they can read in their own time, or if they tell you, can you tell me more about that? If they're interested in hearing it, then by all means keep going. But if anybody else has any questions regarding any of the podcasts that I put out, or if you want me to expand on anything, be sure to send me a direct message. You can do that under the contact tab, or feel free to start a discussion on the forum. So thank you all for stopping by today, and I'll see you later.